All of this stuff here is all what it takes to have a good pressure washer setup in your garage. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Horsepower Obsessed. If you guys saw my previous video, you know there's something missing back here. All right, guys, so if you watched my previous video about the pressure washer setup, obviously it is missing. And the reason for that is we have some plaster work to do here. Still have the wall anchors here, the toggles that are really what's holding everything up. So the lower four here are for the hose reel. These upper four was for the shelf that the pressure washer sits up on top of. Believe it or not, that pressure washer is around 50 pounds. So you need something pretty sturdy here. Now, the weird thing is that the shelf that you get is not wide enough to actually hit your studs. So I went with these toggle bolts that actually hold around 280 pounds in drywall. So we're good there. If you can't tell, this wall is just basically destroyed. I mean, all these holes here were holes that I patched all the way down the line here. And the problem with that is this drywall actually has a texture to it. And it's just not gonna look right if I sand these down and then just throw a coat of paint up there, because these spots here are still gonna be flat while everything else is textured. But anyway, the plaster guy is here now, so we're gonna get started on the walls. All right, guys, and as you saw there, we got the wall all plastered and taken care of. So the next step here is to actually get this painted. So my wife and I are gonna go to the store tomorrow. This is gonna be the period of a couple days getting all this done, but of course it's gonna seem like a couple seconds to you guys. So let's jump to tomorrow. And guys, it's the next day. Well, actually it's about 4 days later. This stuff took a little longer than I anticipated to dry, but it was hard to see while he was putting it on. Hopefully you guys can see it a little bit better here. It is all textured now. So my wife and I are gonna go ahead and paint it today. Then we're gonna get into actually setting the pressure washer back up. I will go over all of the details as far as the hardware I used and what you're gonna have to do to set it all up. And here comes the woman of the hour with all the paint and everything we're gonna need. So let's start into it now. And just like that, guys, the entire wall is done. So as you can see, we got the entire wall plastered, painted, the door painted, new hardware. This is basically just one wall that's done, completely done in the garage. I figured I would go through a how-to of getting all of it set up. So from the actual filter all the way up to the pressure washer, bolted onto the wall, fully functional. Let's get to it. So first things first, we're gonna go ahead and actually start screwing in these bolts. We want these basically almost all the way down, just so we can slide the legs for the shelf on over top of them. As you can see here, it's kind of a slotted open end there. You can actually just fit them right on top of the bolt heads, slide it down. So now, as you can see, we have less work to do there to tighten these things all the way in. There's not a whole lot of room to get anything in here, so I have a kind of a stubby screwdriver that I'm going to use to tighten these down. Basically, these are what holds all the weight of your pressure washer, so you're going to want these pretty tight. She is perfect. The bolts are all in and tightened down, and as you see, I left the flat part flat on all four of them because, like I said, you can't do any of this stuff without being a little bit obsessed. And to take it one step further, we're actually going to use a little bit of stainless steel cleaner and go ahead and clean up the arms of the shelf, because they got a lot of fingerprints on them. That's the kind of the downfall of stainless steel, but this stuff actually does a real good job, cleans it right up, and it's gonna look awesome. Just like that, guys, fingerprints are gone. So this stuff's actually pretty good. If you're interested in anything like this, I'll link it in the description down below. The next step is gonna be the Cox reels. So this has to go onto these lower 4 holes right in between the shelf arms, and it's the same thing. There's 4 bolts that are gonna hold it in, the same kind of toggles that I showed you for the shelf arms. That's what we're gonna use for the Cox reels as well. And it's all about the right tool for the job. So this guy is gonna be your best friend for these particular screws. I'll link this in the description as well if you guys are interested. In the typical obsessed fashion, I got all 4 bolts in there. I got the whole reel leveled, and they are all, again, flat with the actual Phillips head screw. That way everything looks as good as it will function. With the reel here, all I had to do was actually put the level underneath it to make sure it was perfectly level. So if we set it right up against there, you can see it is good to go. Depending on where you get your hose, this could be different. Now, the hose I had before was the blue 50-foot MTM Hydro Cobra Jet hose. This one is still made by MTM Hydro. It has the same 5,000 PSI max rating, but the entire hose is black. So kind of goes a little bit more with my color scheme. Other than the color of the hose and the texture on the hose, it is the exact same hose. One end swivels, which as you can see right here, this one swivels, and the other end does not. We want the swiveling end to go into the actual hose reel. So for this one, we'll just pop the cap off. We're gonna put some Teflon tape on here to go ahead and thread this into the hose reel. That way nothing leaks. We are good to go. As you guys can see here, this is the threaded portion of the hose reel. This is gonna be kind of the difficult part. It's almost gonna feel like the hose doesn't wanna fit in there because of the actual jacket, this rubber jacket right here. But it does fit and it works out pretty nicely. It's definitely a little bit tight in there, so I'm gonna do my best to show you guys what I'm doing here. And then we will go ahead and start feeding it in here and literally screwing it into the threaded part here. Now, as you can see, it's starting to thread. It's getting tighter. For this entire process, what you guys want to keep in mind is any connection like this where there is not a washer on either end, like a rubber washer, you want to make sure this thing is torqued down very tight. Otherwise, this is going to leak. So when we go to move on to like the spigots and quick disconnects on the pressure washer end of the hose, it's not gonna matter as much because there is a rubber washer in there. So you don't really need Teflon tape and you don't have to crank them down insanely tight either. So I wanted to mention the actual MTM Jumper Hose here. So this is an additional piece. So when you buy the hose reel, you are not going to get the jumper hose as well. Now this is just a 2-foot hose from MTM and it has a swivel on this end. On the other end, you add an MTM Quick Connect. This will go right into the actual pressure washer output. So it sends pressure through here into your hose and into your gun. Obviously this is already attached, so we're not going to talk much about this, but you will need the jumper hose for this installation as well. I will link all this stuff in the description down below if you guys are interested, but let's move on with the installation. Next, I'm going to go ahead and get the shelf on here so we can actually set the pressure washer up there. Now the way this goes on is underneath you can actually see there's a little bit of a lip there. You actually slide that over the points of the feet here. And then the back falls down like that. Now, just like the rest of it, it is stainless steel, so I'm gonna wipe it off with that stainless steel cleaner as well after I get it perfectly centered on the legs here. Once again, guys, we gotta get obsessed with this stuff. Gotta make sure it is the exact same distance out on each side. Oh, man, that thing is heavy. Now, before we go too much further, guys, I know some of you who have watched the first video of me talking about the pressure washer have noticed by now there's a couple things that are different. So let me go over what those might be. And one of them is the outlet, first off, being installed. Secondly, the cord being trimmed. So if any of you guys out there wanted to do this same setup, you can easily trim this cord so that it's not 30 feet long and just hanging all over your wall. Now, I obviously did this off camera, but it's very easy to do. On the back of this outlet, there is actually 4 screws. All you have to do is take those out and cut off the excess cable, measure it out, and re-splice them into the connectors there. So there's 3. You'll have your power, your ground, and your neutral. You'll just basically put them back in the same spots they were after you cut the wire to your specific length. Now, I should have filmed that, and I apologize for that, guys, but it really is very easy, very basic, and it gives it a nice little S with a drip loop here, just in case any water was to get on this wire, it would fall down here and drip off versus going right into the outlet if I had put it down like right around here. So a drip loop's pretty important for stuff like this, but this does have a built-in ground fault, so does the actual outlet. So obviously there would be no problems with any of that anyway. Now, next is gonna be up here on the outlet part of the AR Blue Clean. We need to have the male version of the quick connect, just like for the inlet here. Now, the reason that's missing is because the one that I had on here was actually zinc coated, not stainless steel. I've been using this setup now for probably about a month, maybe 2 months before taking it down to get all the walls painted and redone. And what I found is the zinc one had already started to corrode. So I wanted to exchange that for the stainless steel version, because if you look at that, that looks brand new right there. So stainless steel is definitely the way you guys want to go with all this stuff. All of the quick connects that I have on here right now and all of the ends of the hoses are all stainless steel. So they will last a lot longer, they'll look a lot better, and you won't have to buy all these things again anytime soon. So this one here is stainless steel, and this is the zinc coated one that I had in there for a month or 2 at most. And as you can see, there is already a good bit of corrosion right around the lip there. And just overall, there's some pitting on there. This is the same exact thing. I mean, identical, only this one is made from MTM Hydro. Now, it's interesting because these two, there was only like $2 or $3 between them. And I didn't give it any thought as to how quickly this was gonna corrode. But if I had to guess, this thing's not even gonna last a year. I will have all this stuff linked in the description down below for you, but you're definitely gonna wanna do the stainless one. It's a couple dollars more, but it will be worth it in the end because you won't be replacing it all the time. Now, as far as installation, it's literally as easy as just putting it on here and screwing it on. Now, like I said, since there is a rubber seal in there, we don't need any Teflon tape here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and screw it on here, and we are basically good to go. So next, just to get it out of the way, I'm gonna go ahead and quick connect the Mtm Jumper Hose right onto the stainless steel plug we just put in. Real easy stuff, just like that. And that is ready to go. Now it will feed pressure through this hose into the hose reel and to my actual pressure washer gun. I know, mind blown, right? Before we go ahead and start reeling up the hose, there is actually a little clamp that will hold this part still on the hose reel. That way there's no slippage of any kind happening. Now, the Cox reel does come with this, and all it is a little clamp with a piece of rubber on it to prevent any kind of vibrations. And this is just gonna hold the hose tight to the corner here. That way you always have somewhere to start with the reeling. Now, if I move this hose a little bit, you'll actually see the little hole right there. That's where the clamp is gonna go, and that's where this little Phillips head screw goes. So let's go ahead and get that installed. You're gonna wanna make sure that the head of the bolt here is the thing sticking on the side that touches the hose. The threaded end and the nut will go on the outside of the reel. Just like that. Now we'll go ahead and tighten that down. Just so you guys know what I'm talking about, the nut's gonna go right here, the Phillips head screw right there. Before we get started with winding up the hose, I'm actually going to go ahead and start working everything from the spigot up because I want to make sure nothing leaks before I start winding everything up and putting everything away. So we're actually going to start with the spigot. Right there. First is the Y that I'm using. The jumper hose here is actually going to plug into here, and then into here. Now again, for those of you who don't know, this No Spots Pro is a deionization system, so it's basically a giant water filter. That's why the quick connects are awesome. I mean, they're that quick and it's good to go. Now we're gonna get the upflow connected to run up the wall and to the actual pressure washer. So I tested it off camera. Everything seems to be leak free. I'm gonna go ahead and reel this up now. Next, I'm going to go ahead and put the quick disconnect on the end of the pressure washer hose. So before we do that, I have to go ahead and put some Teflon tape on here to make sure we can get a really, really tight connection here, because like I said, guys, there is no rubber seal here. So as you can see here, we got it taped up. So I'm going to go ahead and thread the quick connect on now. And it already is hand tight, so we got to crank this thing down pretty good. And lastly, guys, is going to be some hose management. So I actually found these clips at Lowe's, and as you can see here, they actually clip around that hose, and then you just use the nail here to nail it to the wall so everything stays nice and flush, nice and straight, and it looks like someone put it there on purpose. So once we're done there, this whole setup is completely done at that point. And I'll tell you what, guys, it has turned out really, really, really freaking nice. I love the texture on the walls, the gray color, the white door, the stainless steel hardware, the stainless steel fittings throughout the entire pressure washer setup. And I have something special coming for right here very soon. Stay tuned for that, guys. That's going to be another part of the garage update, and stay tuned for the flooring coming very soon. But anyway, let's get this last little bit in the wall, make sure everything is tidied up, and then we are done. And that's gonna be it, guys. So I hope you've all enjoyed this glimpse into my garage update, because it is totally done. As you can see here, pressure washer's all hooked up, the hose is all good, plugged in, everything is routed here with the cable management or hose management, making it all nice and pretty looking. Now, it may be pretty, it may even be beautiful, but at the end of the day, it's functional, and that's the biggest thing here. So I want stuff in the garage that looks good and functions just as well, if not better. So anyway, that's gonna be it for today's video, guys. If you liked what you saw, give me a big thumbs up. If you have any questions about any of this equipment here or anything we did for the installation, shoot them in the comment section down below, or send me an email, horse.power.obsessed@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to answer anything you may have. Like I said a couple times in the video, guys, there is more to come, so make sure you stay tuned for the future garage video updates. And if you're interested in any of this stuff, it will be in the description down below for you to purchase for your own garage. And if you guys haven't subscribed yet, please do. I'm gonna have loads of content like this coming for any of your cars, but specifically the C7 and C8 Corvette coming very soon. You're not gonna wanna miss any of this stuff, guys. And as usual, I'll catch you in the next upload.